the policies driving the system. We're talking about housing, entitlements, what are called entitlements now, welfare, and other systems that support families in need, the criminal justice system, and banking and insurance. Now, these are some of the things that we have been systematically kept out of getting our fair share or getting our just dues as citizens here in this country. So I'm gonna go to Zakia. Of those things, Zakia, what do you think is the most impactful, or one of the most impactful in your eyes and in your experience?
Well, one thing I didn't say, I'm a mom of 8 and I have 3 grandchildren. And when I first started getting engaged in educational advocacy work, it was 16 years ago. And, you know, like many parents, got involved through education. My children were doing fine, but that didn't mean that I didn't want to be engaged in supporting and helping children that looked like my children. And there were many parents who hadn't found their voice yet. And as I was learning to find mine, to this day, it's my obligation, I feel like my duty, to foster that same kind of support for other parents, not only in New York, but around the country. And so for me, I think in all underlining all those things is around education. Because at the end of the day, if our young people can't sign contracts, much less read a contract, if they can't draw a contract, if they don't know if somebody's giving them a housing, something to look out under housing, and it's not a you know, the small print is there and they're not sure how to read it. If you go to a bank and you're being charged a fee, like at the end of the day, the underlying thing is education. And to share that after 10 years in 2006, and to your point that you opened up with a Democratic governor, right? So for whatever that's worth, right? A Democratic governor, when he was a candidate, said that we have a tale of two, one for the rich, one for the poor, 2 educational systems. But now that he is the governor of this state, all of a sudden forgot about that lawsuit. Again, a decade. And I want to be clear, the money that is owed, the $3.9 billion, goes to the neediest of children across New York State. That's Black, brown, and poor children. So if we're not willing to step up and take care of the neediest of us, right, Democrat, Republican, or otherwise, then what are we saying about those children? What are we saying about those communities? And I think for us, it's very clear. If it's been 10 years and you have not put forth the effort as a state legislature, as a governor, to make sure that our children have what they need, then I question, is it because they are Black and brown children that we have not lit the fire under level of urgency, actually state of emergency, to really support children? So I think underlying all those issues is making sure that we are fully funding public education.
Absolutely. All right. Now, all right, we're going to let Jesse chime in on there. Thank you very much, Zakia.
Well, out of those issues, all of them, it's hard to pick. I mean, there's so many, you know, when you think of how inadequate our system really is. But I'd like to go to income, and I break income down into a couple of different categories. I'll try to do that fairly quickly. We know that income has a direct influence on how well kids do in school. So we also know that a large percentage of the population are working for wages that aren't livable wages. Okay. And to quote Senator Turner, we also know that women are still trying to get their whole damn dollar. And so when we incorporate all of that into the issue of education, we have the perfect storm. For example, if we raise the wages, but we can't raise the wages with the jobs that are currently existing. We can't justify raising the wage for someone who works at McDonald's in certain places, but we can justify providing Americans with a livable wage if we go into renewable energy. There's so many jobs out there with solar. We mentioned about high-speed rail. Where I am here in the city of Talladega, there's a major railway that runs through the heart of the city. And every day the traffic stops. But the only problem with that is not that the traffic is backed up. The problem that I have, there are no business transactions that are ongoing while that train is in this city. So economic development, income, offering people in these communities an opportunity to earn a livable wage is something that I believe we have to attack. And that's a major part of my platform is to not only provide livable wages, but create the industry, rebuild our infrastructure, create the jobs necessary that will that will say that, hey, this particular skill set requires $15 or more. So income, again, I believe where I am is a systemic problem that, exacerbates the issues in education.
Okay. All right. Something before we go to Nina, before we go back to Nina, something Jesse shared with me in our first interview that still sticks with me now. He told me I forget the numbers, 1,200 bridges in Alabama cannot support the weight of a school bus. Is that correct, Jesse?
You're right. There are over 1,200 bridges that can't support the weight of a school bus. Alabama is the only state in America that doesn't have a safety program or plan to monitor the safety of our dam systems. So there's so many problems that are ongoing with regards to infrastructure rebuilding, which could definitely create the jobs that people are looking for.
Education is the foundation. It is what, and this is the historian in me, but when we think about the struggle of our ancestors, it was the thing that they ran to besides trying to find their kinfolk. They really invested in because they understood the power of knowledge and what it could do, not just for them as individuals, but also generationally. And so if we have Black and brown and poor white children stuck in schools throughout this nation that are not preparing them for the 21st century economy, and that's really what we're talking about, is that gone are the days where high school diploma doesn't get it anymore. There was a time 50 to 100 years ago that's all you needed, you'd be just fine. But now you have got to have either a college degree or be highly skilled. Either way it goes, you have to have a skill set that is marketable in the marketplace. And so we have to continue to make sure that policymakers from the local level to the federal level make the requisite investments in our children, because the children of New York or Illinois are not just competing against the children of Ohio or California. They're competing against the children of other nations. They are world citizens. And so we have to make those investments in our young people if we care. Brother Frederick Douglass had a quote, and this is not exactly it, but he basically said that it's more beneficiary to invest in children than to try to rehabilitate grown men. But true that. And so if we can spend $80 billion a year as a nation to house people in prison, and most of these folks are low-level, non-violent offenders or people who are addicted to drugs, we can take some of that money and revamp the criminal justice system and take those types of offenders and get them the rehabilitation that they need to come out and be more productive citizens, and also take a portion of that money and make those requisite investments that we need in our children's education. And everybody might not go to college. I am a college professor, I get it, but we have to make sure that our young people are highly trained, highly skilled, so that they have something that's marketable in the marketplace. So, amen to what Brother Jesse and Sister Zakiya said.